Marina and Justin may be good characters by themselves, but they really come alive when they are together. Their relationship is the heart of the series, and seeing them bond with each other was admittedly a huge part of the basis for my investment in the show. I'm not into romance as a genre, but as an element it often enriches a story, making it feel more complete. They are honestly one of my favorite animated couples. I just can't get enough of their cute banter.
Here, for you.
Now you be careful and keep your distance from that stream. I don't want you turning into a mermaid on me.
It didn't seem to bother you when I saved your life.
Are you gonna keep score?
Ingrid, now you have to save my life if you want to be even.
Well, I certainly want to be even.
I will say that as much as I love their romance, I can see somebody feeling that it can get a bit too syrupy.
You are beautiful. I've never seen anyone so lovely. Would my lady do me the honor of accompanying her humble servant to the Royal Masquerade Ball this evening to brighten the lives of all therein?
The lady would be honored.
It's so unbelievably gushy, mushy, gooey, icky, sweet as... Ooh, it's kind of making me sick.
Oh, you're right. It's sickeningly sweet.
But it's not just their romance. When things get serious, they have each other's backs. Marina is always there to take Justin back to the surface when he can no longer breathe underwater, and vice versa. One of my all-time favorite moments in the show is when Marina's potion runs out in the middle of a raging forest fire and Justin has to carry her to safety. It seems to be a pretty iconic scene as it is a recurring subject in fan art. This duality just goes to show that if you're writing a series based on a fairy tale, use as many of the original characters as you can and don't limit yourself like Disney did. I recently finished another anime inspired by a fairy tale, Cinderella Monogatari. In some ways, it's actually better than Saban's Little Mermaid. The story is more serialized and the production values are much better. The animation is more detailed with very nice touches like lighting changes. There are some story problems, mainly in the last 3 episodes, but it's still worth seeing for their portrayal of the prince. Prince Charles disguises himself as a peasant so that he can go off on adventures with Cinderella, and as such, when they get together in the end, it's a more fully developed relationship than usual. I am mentioning this because while I watched the series in Japanese, in the English dub, Charles is voiced by none other than Justin's voice actor Thor Bishoprick.
Don't cry. Here, take your flowers. They're my favorites, you know.
If I had a nickel for every time Thor Bishoprick voiced an anime version of a fairy tale prince who was the best version of the character,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
Anyways, moving on with the character overview. Marina's father is King Nestor. I love his design, it's actually one of the best in the show. Saban's choice to make their Sea King not have a beard was a brilliant decision to make him look less generic, but, well, let's just say that by the time of the final episode, he doesn't have a character arc like King Triton did where he learns that not all humans are bad. He does get a scene where he beats up Hedwig's octopus Hugo with his bare hands, so that's pretty cool at least. Unlike the original story or the Disney version, Marina only has one sister, Coral. She has to have at least one older sibling, otherwise how else can she be the Little Mermaid? Because she was only one character, the writers were actually able to give her a personality. Unfortunately, it's not a nice one. Coral is bossy and looks down on humans, wondering why any mermaid would be fascinated by one. She constantly threatens to tell Nestor that Marina is in love with Justin, but despite this she never carries out her threat. Even when she learns that Winnie got a friend of hers to fill in for Marina so that she could sneak away from her piano lessons, she has a bit of mercy.
Oh, sorry, Coral. The least you could do is follow Marina. Move it! Okay!
Marina's grandmother, Serena, is another character inspired by the original story. While in that version she served to give her exposition about humanity, she also looked down on them and wanted her granddaughter to remain a mermaid. Here, though, she is rooting for her to get together with Justin. Unfortunately, we are told this rather than shown this, and ultimately she is an underdeveloped character. She does have a great scene with Marina in one of my favorite episodes, so that's something.
Thank you, Grandmother, for understanding my love for a human and not trying to persuade me otherwise.
It's not my place to determine what you should feel in your heart, Marina. What I must do is explain the situation to your father so he doesn't worry about it too much or call out his army to bring you back.
Thank you, Grandmother. I love you so very much.
An original relative created for the show is Marina's cousin Barnabas, who is my favorite member of her family. He is a merboy who also supports Marina's friendship with Justin. He is an inventor who is pretty smart for his age. Both of the episodes that prominently featured him were great, especially X Marks the Spot.
Marina, use the copter! How? Like this, look!
Hey! Stop this wild behavior right now, young man!
Marina's 4 family members are strangely the only other merpeople we ever see. I have to give credit to the Disney show for at least making Atlantica seem like a livelier place. Saban's underwater kingdom almost feels like those environments you'd often see in early CGI shows, with characters wandering around vast empty areas even when they are supposed to be inhabited. While the family goes to visit a great-grandmother off-screen in an episode, Marina's mother is never mentioned, so we can assume that, like in the original story, Nestor is a widower. Maybe Fox's Captain Hook killed her like in the Disney version. Yes, that is a fan theory based on how the direct-to-video prequel Little Mermaid 3, Ariel's Beginnings, opens up with Ariel's mother being killed by a pirate ship that looks suspiciously like the Jolly Roger. It could be Disney recycling assets, but if that was Captain Hook, that would explain why the mere mention of his name was enough to scare the Neverland mermaids out of the movie. Tim Curry's Hook seems like the kind of guy who would hunt mermaids for sport.
If I thought it would in any way improve your ability to think, Bosun Smee, I would bury this iron
3 fathoms deep in your thick skull!
There are some animal companions, and while I do really like them, they are the closest things to Disney knockoffs in the series. But to be fair, Disney wasn't the first company to give the Little Mermaid a cute animal sidekick. In 1975, Toei was the first when in their anime adaptation of The Little Mermaid they gave her a dolphin named Fritz. He's especially memorable because he's the best character in the entire movie. Just look at him protecting Marina from sea monsters on their way to the Sea Witch. That is awesome! He might have been my all-time favorite animal in any Little Mermaid adaptation, if it weren't for the fact that he was okay with her killing the prince so that she could become a mermaid again. Still, even with that black mark, he's not the worst Little Mermaid companion, and it's impossible to hate the poor thing when he's chasing after Marina's soul at the end. Fun fact, Fritz is also voiced by Thor Bishoprick. So glad he got to trade up for a superior version of the Little Mermaid. I wonder if he was ever worried about being typecast as anime versions of fairy tale princes and or characters who constantly shout the name Marina.
Marina! Marina!
Marina! Marina! Marina!
Winnie the Seahorse is Marina's best friend. She is so valued that she has a room in Marina's palace. She has an attitude and can be very temperamental at times, but when the chips are down, she always has Marina's back. Some might argue that her sonic scream, as well as her abilities to fly and breathe outside of water, make her overpowered, but I think that they're just cool. The Disney animal companion she is most similar to is Sebastian in that they are the most prominently featured and marketed ones. As much as I like Winnie, I have to admit I think that Sebastian is a better character, but both are examples of how the cute animal sidekick trope can be done well. And an interesting coincidence, Winnie's Japanese voice actress sings 2 songs, much like how Sebastian sings Under the Sea and Kiss the Girl. She performs both the opening and closing themes. Bobo the clownfish, despite being obviously inspired by Flounder, is actually better than his inspiration, who is my least favorite character in Disney's Little Mermaid. I don't hate him, I get why he exists and he can be helpful, but I just don't find him interesting. Bobo is very helpful, often spying on Hedwig so that he can inform the others about her schemes. I really like this because it paints him as an active helper, not just somebody who helps when the situation calls for it. But my favorite thing about him is his relationship with Winnie. The two of them make for a cute couple, and I wish they had more scenes together.
Hi, Winnie. Would you like to go watch the corn barnacles with me?
Winnie, don't forget we have a job to do.
Right, Ridley. Guarding Marina's weak spot here is our #1 priority.
Bobo, we're leaving.
Oh, yeah.
See you in an hour.
Bye, Winnie.
Ridley the sea otter is the most comical and unique of the animal sidekicks. I love otters, so it was a great choice to put one in the series. He can get annoying sometimes because he's always going on about how he wants to eat clams, but he has some funny comments. He can also talk while underwater despite needing to breathe air, but we can just assume that Anselm found some kind of magic to help him be able to do that. He doesn't really have a Disney counterpart. The closest comparison I can come up with is that he is kind of like Scuttles in that they are both air-breathing sea animals. Scuttles is personally my favorite of the Disney animal companions, to the point where the only episode of the TV series I got any enjoyment out of was the one showing how he and Ariel met. I like him better than Ridley for being less annoying and funnier thanks to a great performance by Buddy Hackett. Now that I think about it, another connection they have is that they both help to save their respective little mermaids from the sea witch's deals. Ridley convinced Anselm to use his magic to save Marina, and Scuttles discovered that Ursula was trying to marry the prince, which ultimately led to her downfall. One cool thing about Ridley is that sometimes Anselm would transform him into other forms to save the others from Hedwig, like a copy of a monster we see in one of my favorite episodes, and even a dinosaur.
Anselm, could you explain where that Stegosaurus came from? They're not native to these parts.
There's no accounting for Stegosauruses.
Ridley's owner Anselm is my favorite Little Mermaid OC ever. His often curmudgeonly nature is quite fun to watch, but deep down, he really cares about Justin, and this made him a very interesting character to me. He's cut from the same cloth as Merlin, but nevertheless manages to feel different enough. Sometimes he can be a walking deus ex machina, like when he solved the conflict by causing it to rain in 2 different episodes, but when you have somebody that powerful, it's kind of inevitable, but at least his personality always came across before that happened. We find out exactly why such a powerful wizard would be content to serve the kingdom of Gandor in one of my favorite episodes. Even when he doesn't play a big part in the plot, his scenes are usually a highlight.
Time's up!
And that will be all for today's lesson then, my good man. Now go have some fun with that volcano thing, and don't forget to tell me all about it.
I will, Anselm. Thanks. Well, see ya.
The prince learns very quickly indeed when he's interested. It does look like fun, though.
Anselm was voiced wonderfully by the late great Aaron Taggart, doing a great impression of Claude Rains. Other highlights of his acting career include Cranky Kong in the Donkey Kong Country TV show, where he captured the character perfectly, and Professor Vink, my favorite of the only 2 recurring characters in the stories told on Are You Afraid of the Dark?
We have work to do.
Look, my little brother's in trouble and...
I know all about your brother, and I can help you find him, as long as you understand one thing.
What's that?
I am not a nutbag.